Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Eastchester Eagles Productions. I'm Dr. Walter Moran, Superintendent of Schools, and during this show I want to talk about an important project facing the school district and the community. Joining me for the show is the President of the Eastchester Board of Education, Rob Sommer. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Moran.
At the October 22nd board meeting, the board voted unanimously to approve the bond referendum vote for December 12th. That will be to replace the synthetic field behind the high school, middle school, and it also includes funding for repointing of the middle school and high school, as well as funds for perimeter fencing and security. Can you give us some background on how the board came to that decision?
Sure. Well, the board has a five-year plan, and we've been discussing the infrastructure needs of the district for quite some time. Every district has to have a five-year plan, and that helps us determine what projects need to be completed and set a timeline for the completion of those projects. Just as in our homes, equipment and structures, and in our schools have a lifespan. This bond will address a few of the areas in need of replacement or repair that cannot be financed through the annual budget. Based upon, due to the tax cap and things like that, there are bigger needs that have to be done in a different way. In this case, since we closed the field due to some safety concerns, the need to act quickly became more necessary and expedient, and we are trying to do this in a sensitive way to the taxpayer so we keep the project to absolute essentials.
Sure. You know, there were concerns about the exposed seams and worn surfaces that prompted us to close the field. And although it does look good from a distance, we know that the field has outlived its useful life, and it does incur very heavy use from different groups throughout the course of the day and year. So what I'd like to do at this time is to share with the public some of the presentation that we made on October 22nd, and perhaps some of the photographs will help answer questions that people might have about the bond. We see in this first slide room 309 in the high school, and in this left corner by that top window we see that the brick has begun to protrude and to crack away from there, and that is an area where we're looking for repointing, certainly, and some damage is occurring there. This is a closer look of the same windows. Part of the repair work at the high school includes replacement of lintels, and the lintels are this area right here that support the area just above the windows, and again they are aged. And it's important for the community to know that many of these areas in the high school and middle school, the buildings are very old, and typically mortar joints last about 50 years. The high school was built in 1929, making it 84 years old. The middle school in 1954, making it 59 years old. And so in many cases the mortar has really just lived past the point where it can sustain itself. This is just another view again of that, and you can see some of the rusting, particularly in the area here by the lintels. This is actually a view of a classroom outside the library area in the shared wing, and it's very evident here to see that sections of mortar are missing, and that is part of the pointing work that certainly needs to be done here. This is an area just above that, and again one can see the brick beginning to move away from the building, so certainly in need of urgent repair. This particular area is a bathroom window in the middle school, and you can see over time that some repair work has been done, but again this is part of the pointing project that's part of this bond proposal. We move next to the athletic field, the synthetic field, and again if you look at it from a distance and not very carefully, the field looks quite fine, but upon closer inspection you begin to see some black lines appearing across the field, and as we look more closely at those lines you can begin to see how the synthetic field has begun to pull away from the surface. And here's an example of a seam which could, a student could very easily catch their foot and be injured in a seam like that. And if you look across the field, you see that these seams extend from one sideline to the other approximately every 5 yards. And so what really occurred here is that the seams began to move away from the field almost completely, and it really made the field unplayable. This is an area on the near end of the school where a patch was actually inserted near the soccer goal, and you can see the difference in height between the patch and the surface, which has worn nearly 2 inches since it was installed about 12 years ago. So currently the field is closed, and it's important for all of us to understand the use of the synthetic field, not only for the athletic teams, but particularly high school and middle school physical education classes and recess, use this field all the time. Certainly all of our varsity JV and modified sports, football, soccer, lacrosse, and our track teams use it throughout the year. Additionally, we have heavy use from our town and recreation departments. Blue Devils football, EYSA soccer, and travel team soccer, Blue Devils lacrosse, and during the summer months our town camp uses the field. So it does get extended use. So for the bond, we are looking to not only replace the turf field and the track, but also to come up with some regulations and guidelines and policies to secure that investment. And so we will be looking at that, including some perimeter fencing and security cameras, and again, posted regulations for use. The total cost of the project is $1,890,724. And again, that includes the replacement of the turf, the resurfacing of the track, middle and high school repointing, security cameras, and perimeter fencing. For the average taxpayer, for the home assessed at $10,000, that would be a figure of about $29.90 per year over the course of 15 years. We're looking at December 12th as the date for the bond referendum, and that will be coming up in quite short order.
Dr. Moran, several people have asked me about whether we should continue to have a turf field or whether we should go back to natural grass. I know you've read several reports comparing the two fields. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. You know, any new field is going to provide a better and safe surface. So there are advantages to a synthetic field, certainly over turf, one being the ability to use it with greater frequency. And it makes more sense for us, given that we have the footprint already of a synthetic field, to continue with that. The underground structure may very well be ready and intact, to support that. Synthetic fields are used by most districts in the area because they find that they can really withstand the constant use, and that certainly is the case here in Eastchester. A grass field would need to be taken out of rotation and rested and repaired, and that would make it quite difficult for us given the frequency of use. Grass fields also suffer a lot of damage after rain and make it very difficult, whereas a synthetic field can be used actually when it's raining. So, given its flexibility and the ability to withstand great use, the synthetic field has many advantages.
And what about cost comparisons? Have you seen studies on cost comparisons of the two surfaces?
The initial cost for a grass field will certainly be less, but the difference really kicks in with the maintenance of a grass field. And the maintenance requirements for a grass field would include the mowing and raking of the field, the fertilization, the seeding, the top dressing, the thatching, watering, and then also labor costs involved in lining and relining the fields. The artificial turf field, on the other hand, needs to be regroomed every 4 to 6 weeks, and what's done there is there's an infill which is part of the field that migrates with use, and so you bring a machine across the field and it helps to mitigate that. So the costs really over time are in the advantage of the artificial surface.
And can you talk about the projected timeline for the project, assuming it passes on December 12th?
Sure. The plan would then go to State Education Department for review and approval. Those would be the architectural plans. And assuming approval, the project would then be put out to bid, and it would be awarded to the lowest bidder. The job could then begin, and that would likely be in the spring. The work would conclude, based upon our estimates, during the fall of 2014. And of course the pointing work would be done before that. Rob, a question that many people have is, why is this project of interest to all voters in Eastchester?
Sure. Well, first off, the Board of Education has always viewed the turf and track as a community asset. And from the slide that you showed earlier, where you can see the many uses that the turf, for instance, gets, the turf is used both as part of our main gym physical education requirements. As well, it also gets community use. The track, on almost any night you drive by the facility, you'll see people from the community walking the track. So it's a real community asset. And so that's an important thing from the board's perspective. As well, being part of the physical education requirement, even if you have children who aren't in the middle school or high school yet, who are using it as part of the gym class, if you have children in the schools, they're going to be here soon enough. Time really goes by fast, and so those kids will be here, and in order to have the track for them as well. In addition, half of the bond relates to the repointing. And having safe and well-maintained buildings is something that's important to all of us, whether you have kids in the school or not. So for all of those reasons, we think the project has importance to all of the voters. How can voters find out more information about the project?
We're in the process right now of working on a newsletter that will be mailed to all residents, including much detail and questions that people may have. We will answer in that. Also, we'll be posting more detailed information on our district webpage. Additionally, there will be 2 community forums, one on November 12th at 8 p.m. and one on November 20th at 9:30 a.m. Both of those meetings will take place in the new middle school cafeteria.
Polls will be open on December 12th from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the Eastchester High School and 235 Garth Road Community Center for those Garth Road residents.
Rob, thank you for being my guest, and thank you to all the board members of Eastchester for your service to the district.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Dr. Walter Moran. Thank you for watching Eastchester Eagle Productions. This show will also be viewable on YouTube.